So you may remember the name Jamaal Bowman, Democratic representative from New York, which has been all the talk these days since socialist Zohran Mamdani has recently won the primary for New York City mayor, but that's for a different time. Anyways, you might not necessarily remember Jamaal Bowman for his politics, more so for the incident in 2023 when he pulled the fire alarm during a House session when there was not an emergency. And more so, at the time of the evacuation, House Democrats were working to delay a vote on a funding bill to keep the federal agencies open, saying they needed time to review a bill that Republicans abruptly released to avoid a shutdown. And so he was accused of delaying their process. However, Bowman said it was a mistake he made while in a rush to open a door that typically would open but didn't that day. But either way, he pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge. But in exchange for his plea, he would have the misdemeanor charge dropped if he paid a $1,000 fine and served 3 months probation. All of which is bullcrap because in case you haven't seen it, here's him doing it. And that sign on the door that he knowingly knocked over was an emergency exit only sign. Same with that stand, emergency exit only. And people like Marjorie Taylor Greene had a field day with this.
Hi everyone, we're at the infamous door where Jamaal Bowman claims he had to pull a fire alarm to get out. Now these doors are open on weekdays. Every member of Congress knows that, everybody that works here knows that. But on Saturdays and Sundays, they are locked and only certain doors are open on Saturdays and Sundays. Now come on over here. This right here is a fire alarm. Nowhere does it say, pull the fire alarm to open the exit door. Doesn't say that, and I think ex-middle school principals know better. Let me show you how we go when we need to go vote. Come on, go this way. Oh, look, there's stairs. By the way, we had to use the stairs to evacuate the Cannon building after Jamaal Bowman pulled the fire alarm.
And shocker, the following primary for re-election, he not only lost it, but it was the most expensive primary in history, with nearly $25 million spent on it. And instead of acknowledging that the fire alarm incident probably played a role in him losing, he blamed something completely different.
Do you think you'd be preparing for another term right now if it weren't for that fire alarm incident?
No, hell no. I mean, my district is a super pro-Israel district. The minute I called for a ceasefire, that was the last straw with many in the district. And I say last straw because, because I beat Elliot Engel, there was a target on my back from that community since then.
Oh, just what people would have needed. Someone who's going to say the Jews put a target on your back just because you beat a Jewish person in the previous primary? Yeah, I mean, maybe they didn't want you in office. I mean, who wouldn't want the person who would speak to their best interest better? I mean, I don't really like it, but that's tribalism for you. But how about the fact that you say divisive stuff like that? Because the way he said it implies that the Jewish people in the United States don't want a ceasefire. And I'm not talking about the Israeli government who violated the ceasefire. I'm talking about the everyday Jewish people who just want peace and freedom from radical Islamists who weaponized the Free Palestine movement. Because one thing is for sure, and that's anti-Semitism seems to be becoming more and more normalized every day. Not saying there aren't any pro-Israel/Jewish people who weaponize what Hamas has done and use it to justify blind hatred of Muslims, Arabs, Palestinians. I just feel that anti-Semitism has grown on the far left and far right. And I try to be nuanced because as much as I used to like Ben Shapiro, for example, and I don't hate him, I just think that one of his major blind spots is his loyalty for Israel, that he doesn't want to call them out for their wrongdoings and he's losing support because of it. And it's getting harder and harder to support many of his views. But number one, I don't necessarily think his views reflect the everyday Jew in the United States who just wants the anti-Semitism to stop. Number two, I think if you dislike Ben, it should be for his unconditional support for Israel, not the fact that he's Jewish. That's not healthy and it won't move the needle anywhere, and it doesn't make you any better. But enough of my soapbox. My point being in all of this that Jamaal Bowman sows hate and divisiveness, and on top of that, he doesn't take accountability for the crap he does. Because outside the fire alarm crap, which to me is silly and childish, he likes to cry racism when it doesn't exist. Exhibit A, when Shedeur Sanders, Cleveland Browns QB and Deion Sanders' son, didn't get drafted in the first round, Jamaal Bowman had something to say.
Someone like Shedeur Sanders, because he talk a certain way and because he wears gold chains and his pops is Dion and he don't want to submit to y'all white shit, he's gonna slip in the draft. And you're telling me it's based on the evaluation. Like you didn't watch the games and watch him play.
and see him play.
Which I don't watch football regularly, so I can't comment much on Shadur's skill. But what I do know is this, that the last 3 Super Bowl MVP awards were held by Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, both black. 2 of the last 3 League Associated Press MVP awards were won by Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, also black, and that the last 2 recipients of the Associated Press Offensive Rookie of the Year awards were Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud, also black. So again, while I don't watch football on the regular and can't really comment on Shedeur Sanders, I just don't buy it being racist when the NFL is heavily black. But what I think is crazier is what Jamaal Bowman has recently said about why black people get sick at higher rates than others.
This is America.
Catholic
and the
pro-life
problem is
ministries bombed.
we are not dealing
Catholic
with
pro-life ministries
America's
bombed. You're
original
right.
sin and its disease of hate and racism towards black and brown people. Your colleagues in the Republican Party do not hold each other accountable when it comes to the racism that comes from the party on a consistent basis.
Where are you on
You
the, where
can't
are
be
the
calm
assassination
about
attempts?
this. I'm a black man in America. The reason why heart
I'm
disease.
white, I can't comment on
Listen
that.
to what I'm
Is that
saying.
what
The
you're
reason
saying?
why heart disease and cancer
simply
and
racist
obesity
because I can't
and
comment on that.
diabetes are bigger in the black community is because of the stress we carry from having to deal with being called the N-word. If your colleagues would listen and try to learn and engage and grow and stop being so hateful, we could have a better country.
Jamaal.
But unfortunately, we're still here.
Okay, a lot to unpack here. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, I give a little credence to the idea that racism that you experience can lead to stress, which can lead to disease. Sure, I mean, I've experienced racism and it's affected my health. But at the same time, there are things that I think are far outside racism, like obesity and sometimes cancer. While some people have illnesses outside of their control, more times than not, you can control the food that you consume. You can work on your stress levels, and I say this as someone who's very anxious and needs to manage my mental health better. Conversation for a different day. But those are in my control, and as far as the N-word, what about black people calling each other that word? Does that play a part, or is it just non-black people who are deemed not allowed to use it? Not advocating for the use of that term, but I'm assuming that he's saying that whites who use that word contribute to black people's illnesses, not black people who do it. And also, what about the issues in your own community, the violence? Oh, but he doesn't want to talk about any of that. And also, anytime someone starts an argument with, I'm a black man, that automatically turns people off because all they hear is, you don't have the right to speak on this topic. Sure, I'm not African American, but if you're going to blame another community for the problems, then members of that community sure as hell deserve to have a voice there. So disingenuous and pompous, them saying that if Republicans would learn and grow and not be so hateful, that would help. How about you practice what you preach and you stop coming at people with that much hate, But continue, Jamaal.
Jamaal, I feel your passion and I understand where you're coming from, sincerely. I really, really do. It happens on both sides, Jamaal. You might think it happens more on your side. Jamaal, when I leave the show, Jamaal, you should see my Twitter feed.
And they're acquitted. It's not the same. And I don't want to qualify or quantify pain. That's not what I'm talking about. Everyone goes through pain. But the racism in this country is a disease that will destroy us. And it's destroying us right now as we speak.
You're a divided
January
country.
6th,
100%.
everybody was pardoned. Riots in LA, they're insurrectionists. But we pardoned everyone January 6th.
So, Congressman,
a man
that
was
connection.
walking through the Capitol with a
I was
Confederate
there.
flag.
I was evacuated.
What does the Confederate flag represent?
Come on, Congressman.
I'm asking you a question.
This was about a riot in the Capitol.
When you
To suggest-
erect a
of
wooden
course,
cross in
yeah.
American history, what does that mean? Google black lynchings in the South and watch the images that come up with black people hanging from trees and white people looking and eating sandwiches. This is America. We're going to deal with it or not. Why are you in denial?
Stop it. I'm not saying
Let me let
America's
Mark
the only
respond.
nation.
Okay, yeah, J6 was a riot that got out of hand. And yeah, maybe issuing a blanket pardon was wrong. But number one, the fact is there were people held without trial for 4 years. Or for example, you had Enrique Tarrio, who was not present on J6, but because he recruited people to march on the Capitol, he was sentenced to 22 years in prison. Or InfoWars host Owen Schroyer, someone who was present at the J6, but neither entered the Capitol building, nor has been accused of committing violence or destruction on Capitol grounds. But because he yelled death to tyrants, which by itself isn't a problem because that was what was used during the revolution and it's vague enough to not be a direct call to violence, he was still sentenced to 60 days in prison for his role, so that was a total violation of free speech. So again, while there were some J6ers who deserved to be held accountable, many got unfair treatment and were like political prisoners. But the other point is, what does this have to do with black people? Just because one person had a Confederate flag, one person, the riot had nothing to do with black people and everything to do with people being fed up with not being able to question anything, not being able to say, I don't trust the results of the election. Which again, I don't defend in totality what happened, I'm just saying that Jamaal Bowman tying this to the plight of black people is so disingenuous, and this is yet again another reason why the Democrats are losing. But guys, I want to thank you all for watching this video as always, and if you appreciated my commentary, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, hopefully I've earned a subscription. Here's some more videos for you to watch in the meantime. Until next time, peace out.